Good afternoon, good evening, welcome, hello. Evening? It's not evening here. It might be evening where you are if you're. Well, it might be the dead. You could be anywhere. Who knows? But hello, welcome to another episode of Arcana Unearthed. Today we're going to be looking at the latest updates to the Cleric class, which you can see on my screen here. For those that haven't been following along with Arcana Unearthed, that's the show, not Unearthed Arcana, which is the document that you can see over there. We are currently going through playtest packet number 6, the Player's Handbook Playtest 6. We've covered the Bard, we've covered the rules glossary, and now we're going to look at the Cleric. The original plan for today was to look at the subclasses as well, but we'll see how we get on, because time is a little bit limited for me today, unfortunately. But we will take a look at the Cleric class and see what has changed, if anything at all, for that matter. I do need to have a look and compare to the 2014 Player's Handbook, because the playtest material, again, for those that are not familiar, is looking to change those rules. There's going to be a rules update that's coming out next year with a new Player's Handbook, and so that is what we're delving into today, the Cleric class. To take a look at the Cleric class, we should start, perhaps, at the beginning. So, for those not familiar with the Cleric class, their primary ability is Wisdom, so that remains the same. And let's read this little blurb out. Again, this is just for those that aren't familiar with who clerics are, what clerics are for, and why they're important to D&D. So, clerics draw power from the realms of the gods and harness it to work miracles. Blessed by a deity, a pantheon, or another immortal entity, a cleric can reach out to the divine magic of the outer planes, where gods dwell, and channel that energy to bolster people and to battle foes. Because their power is a divine gift, clerics typically associate themselves with temples or shrines dedicated to whatever deity or other immortal force unlocked their magical ability. Harnessing divine magic doesn't rely on specific training, yet a cleric might learn formulaic prayers and ancient rites that help them focus their minds and spirits on drawing power from the outer planes. Even a cleric who declines to worship their divine benefactor might perform their benefactor's rites if doing so helps the cleric feel connected to the immortal realms. Not every acolyte or officiant at a temple or shrine is a cleric. Some priests are called to a simple life of temple service, carrying out their devotion through prayer and rituals, not through magic. Some of the most influential high priests are incapable of harnessing divine magic, and a few of them feel threatened when a cleric appears. Many can pray, and some mortals claim to speak for their gods, but few can marshal the power of those gods the way a cleric can. Now, they're going down an interesting route, which I think they kind of started to suggest in the 2014 Player's Handbook. From a lore perspective, the cleric doesn't necessarily need to worship the gods. This is now about taking power from the outer planes, which is where the gods dwell. But not necessarily from being given the power from the gods themselves. Which, I don't know. Like, to me, that kind of diminishes the flavour of a cleric. The flavour of a cleric is that you are a holy servant of these gods. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. It feels like it's neutering them a little bit. But I do like the extent to which they are differentiating a cleric from a lowly priest, because that has always been something that's like, well, they're a priest, so they should be able to do cleric things. It's like, well, not necessarily. But that's just the flavour stuff. That's not even really the important stuff here. That is just all for flavour. The important thing is the design note updates. Now, you'll see down here, we have the table of level progression. It's there. Take a look at it. And by the way, there is a link in the description to this very document, if you did want to follow along at your own pace and have a look around. But I'm just going to put this chart on the screen so you can quickly see it. I'm not going to go into great detail, because this will... You'll know why in a moment. But here are the design notes from the Cleric updates. Since the last playtest version, the Cleric has already been updated as part of the playtests. Not officially, and not like published update, not in a player's handbook, for example, but as part of the playtest program, they've already done an update to the Cleric once. This is a revised update, if you will, after they've taken on some of the feedback. So, Divine Order was formerly called Holy Order, and has moved from 2nd to 1st level. Now, I'm pretty sure, and this is where I reveal once again that I am very much a forever DM, because the class features, I always get a little bit lost with some of them. No, that is right. So yes, what I was going to say was Holy Order, I believe, was something that they introduced in the last playtest, which is correct. And they've changed it now to Divine Order. I'd like to know perhaps why they have changed the naming of it. I wonder if it's sensitivity thing, perhaps. I don't know. But it was formerly called Holy Order. Now it's called Divine Order, and this was a way of allowing a cleric to have some class options and make some choices about their class before they actually get their subclass, which is interesting, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So this has now been moved from 2nd level to 1st level, and the Thaumaturge option has been redesigned to include elements from the former Thaumaturge and Scholar options. We'll come back to this. This is just kind of the headline, so we'll go into detail about those soon. Spellcasting has one noteworthy change. Spell preparation is no longer tied to the level of your spell slots. Again, not entirely sure what they mean by that. We'll come back to that. Channel Divinity has returned to 2nd level. I can't remember what level they moved it to. I imagine they might have moved it to 1st in the last one. And its number of uses now increases with your cleric level and isn't based on your proficiency bonus. They were doing that a lot in the previous playtest material, where they were basing things a lot around the proficiency bonus. So now they've moved it back to the level. In addition, you regain 1 use whenever you finish a short rest. The healing and damage of the Divine Spark has also changed. Divine Spark was something new that they also introduced in the last playtest. And Turn Undead now uses the Incapacitated and Frightened conditions. Finally, the multiclassing sidebar has a new rule for Channel Divinity. I don't think I'll cover the multiclassing side of things, because I must admit I really don't do much in the way of multiclassing, and I don't know if I will have any valuable things to add. But there it is. Screenshot that. The multiclassing and the cleric bit that is here. Screenshot that if you do want to have a look at it, or again, there's a link below. But I will skim over the multiclassing side of things. Now, the cleric subclass levels now match the level of progression. This is something they were talking about. Jeremy Crawford was talking about on the D&D YouTube channel. That they had tried in the previous playtest material to have the level progression uniform across all classes, but I think it created some design challenges and design problems for them. So they were like, "Yeah, we're going to scrap that. We're gonna keep the level progression as it was in the 2014 Player's Handbook." But they have made an exception with the cleric, which I'm surprised to see, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Which is that the subclass is now going to be at 3rd level, which was the case in the previous playtest material, but wasn't the case in the 2014 Player's Handbook, and that's what I'm surprised by. Because I think one of the reasons I wasn't a huge fan of them moving these subclass choices around was the cleric. Because I don't think the cleric makes sense to not have your divine domain chosen at 1st level, because you know the god you're worshipping. But I do wonder if that is why they've made the decision to separate the law of worshipping a god and kind of make it a little bit more malleable, perhaps. I don't know. Smite Undead now uses your wisdom modifier rather than your proficiency bonus. We've also clarified that this damage doesn't end the turn effect on an undead. Oh, the turn undead effect. They could have really worded that better. Blessed Strike now lets you choose Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting. In 2014, a subclass gave you one of those features. In this playtest, you now get a choice. Commune is now a new 9th level feature. Exciting. An improved Blessed Strikes, a new 14th level feature. Divine Intervention and Greater Divine Intervention have been redesigned to allow reliable results, the most requested change for the features. And Greater Divine Intervention has returned to 20th level, replacing Epic Boon, and again, this is something that we've seen a lot in the recent playtest materials. So hit dice remain at 1d8 for the Cleric, 8 plus your Constitution modifier for extra hit points after at first level, and then thereafter either 1d8 or 5 plus your Constitution modifier. That remains the same. In terms of proficiencies, saving throws remain Wisdom and Charisma. Skills, you get to choose 2 from History, Insight, Medicine, Persuasion, and Religion. That remains the same. And in terms of weapons, that actually remains the same. All simple weapons and no tools proficiencies. And armor training, which has been separated out. Light armor, medium armor, and shields. So all of the proficiencies and everything remains exactly the same. We have seen in some of the other classes that rather than blanket kind of simple weapons or martial weapons, we have seen some changes in the way that they've presented those, either to make them more broad or to make them more confined to just individual weapons and things, which has been nice to see, but they haven't done that here. In terms of starting equipment, again, we've seen them take away a lot of the choice, simply going, here's the equipment we recommend, or take some gold and buy your own. So what they're recommending for the starting equipment here is chain shirt, holy symbol, mace, priest pack shield, or 7 gold pieces. Or, if you prefer, take 110 gold pieces and use it to buy whatever gear that you'd like. So, that's that to begin with. So, if we take a look now at the actual main cleric features themselves, we are starting with looking at Divine Order, which is your first level feature. And if you're looking at this directly in comparison to the 2014 Player's Handbook, is actually the first new class feature that you get. But again, this did feature as Holy Order in a previous playtest material, but I'm not going to compare that. I'm just going to compare against the 2014 Player's Handbook. So, first level, Divine Order. You have dedicated yourself to one of the following sacred roles of your choice. Protector. Trained for battle, you gain martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. So, more proficiencies. Nice. Or the Thaumaturge. You know 1 extra cantrip from the Divine Spell list. See your spellcasting feature for information on preparing spells, which we'll come to that in a moment. In addition, your mystical connection to the Divine gets you a bonus to your Intelligence Religion checks. The bonus equals your Wisdom modifier, a minimum of 1. So you get to add your Wisdom to your Religion checks. That's pretty cool. I think that kind of existed, but I think that might have been a separate from what they were saying with the design notes. The Thaumaturge option redesigned to include evidence from the former Thaumaturge and Scholar options, so the Scholar was a separate option, which I'm guessing must have been the adding your Wisdom modifier thing, which is cool. So now we get to spellcasting. I think they've made a few changes here. Again, I don't know how much that will compare to the 2014 Player's Handbook. So, you have learned to cast spells through prayer, meditation, and devotion. See the Player's Handbook for rules on spellcasting. The information below details how you use those rules as a cleric. Cantrips. You know 3 cantrips of your choice from the Divine Spell list. Rather than choosing, you may start with Guidance, Sacred Flame, and Thaumaturgy. Whenever you gain a cleric level, you can replace one of your cantrips with another cantrip of your choice from the Divine Spell list. Now, I don't think that was in the 2014 Player's Handbook off the top of my head, but I know that it's something that a lot of tables use. Yeah, I can't see that in the cantrip section of the Player's Handbook. But it is a kind of house rule that a lot of tables have used over the years of like, well, yeah, you can change a cantrip up when you level up, so that's nice to see that included in there. When you reach 4th and 10th level in this class, you learn another cantrip of your choice from the Divine Spell list, as shown in the cantrips column of the Cleric table. Which I believe, again, because they've been saying that the class progression matches the 2014 Player's Handbook, that should match up, so no changes there in terms of number of cantrips. Spell slots. The Cleric table shows how many spell slots you have to cast your spells at 1st level and higher. To cast one of these spells, you must expend a slot of your spell's level or higher. You regain all expended spell slots when you finish a long rest. So again, no change there. Prepared spells of 1st plus level. You prepare the list of spells of 1st level and higher that are available for you to cast with this feature. To start, choose 4 1st level spells from the Divine Spell list. Rather than choosing, you may start with Bless, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, and Shield of Faith. The number of spells on your list also increases as you gain Cleric levels, as shown in the Prepared Spells column of the Cleric table. Again, that should match up. Whenever that number increases, choose additional spells from the Divine Spell list until the number of spells on your list matches the number on the table. The chosen spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots. For example, if you're a 3rd level Cleric, your list of prepared spells can include 6 spells of 1st level or 2nd level in any combination. If another Cleric feature gives you spells that you always have prepared, those spells don't count against the number of spells on the list you prepare with this spellcasting feature, but those spells otherwise follow the rules in this feature. I really say this every time, but I really hate the wording of this. It's just so unnecessarily complicated. Like, do we really need to explain to people, here's the number of spells that you should have on the list, so go one at a time and choose those spells, because this thing here just then really overcomplicates it. To me, I don't know. Maybe people will disagree with me. Maybe I'm a bit headachy today, so maybe I'm just a little bit salty. I need more caffeine. So, changing your prepared spells. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change your list of prepared spells, replacing one or more of the spells there with other divine spells for which you have spell slots. Preparing a list requires time spent in prayer and meditation, at least 1 minute per spell level for each spell you add to the list. Now, I'm pretty sure there was something here about spell changes to preparing spells. Spell preparation is no longer tied to the level of your spell slots. Is it in terms of how long it takes? You can change this. Preparing a new list of cleric spells requires time spending at least 1 minute per spell level for each spell on your list. That remains the same. I don't quite understand what they're saying here. Spell preparation is no longer tied to the level of your spell slots. To prepare... I actually don't... That's not jumping out at me. I don't know if that's particularly clear, and I feel like I might have missed something here. Preparing one or more of spells there with other divine spells for which you have spell slots. Preparing a new list. To me, that doesn't read any different. Am I must be missing something here. But it's obviously nothing too major. Why is that not jumping out at me? Come on! The spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots. Well, yeah. I don't know. I feel like I know that's not a very helpful thing to be talking about here, but that doesn't seem any different to me. Spellcasting ability. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for your cleric spells, which we would expect. Spellcasting focus. You can use a holy symbol as a spellcasting focus for the spells you prepare for this class. Again, fairly simple. So now we're looking at channel divinity here. and this has changed a little bit. It's returned to second level. I believe they put it into first before. Its number of uses now increases with spell level and isn't based on your proficiency bonus. Let's just read through it. So, you gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from the outer planes, using that energy to fuel magical effects. You start with 2 such effects, Divine Spark and Turn Undead, each of which is described below. Each time you use your channel divinity, you choose which effect to create, and you gain additional effect options at higher levels in this class. You can use channel divinity twice. You regain 1 expended use when you finish a short rest, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. You gain additional uses when you reach certain cleric levels, as shown in the channel divinity column of the cleric table. If a channel divinity effect requires a saving throw, the DC equals the spell save DC from this class's spell casting feature. So, to compare channel divinity as it exists in the 2014 Player's Handbook at second level. So, second level of 2014 Player's Handbook. So that, again, the class progression has been moved back to matching the 2014 Player's Handbook. You gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from your deity, which I much prefer than the Outer Planes thing, but fine. Using that energy to fuel magical effects. You start with 2 such effects, Turn Undead, and an effect determined by your domain. That's different here. You're going to get Divine Spark, as we'll get to in a moment, with the Unearthed Arcana. So, when you use your Channel Divinity, you choose which effect to create. You must then finish a short or long rest to use your Channel Divinity again to start with. So, you now have 2 chances to use Channel Divinity before you rest in any way. So now we look at Divine Spark. Now this is something that was introduced in the last playtest material, so there's nothing to compare this to in terms of the 2014 Player's Handbook. So as a magic action, again, check out our rules glossary episode for clarity on what a magic action actually is, but essentially it's casting a spell. As a magic action, you point your holy symbol at another creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself and focus divine energy at them. Roll 1d8 and add your wisdom modifier. You either restore hit points to the creature equal to that total, or force the creature to make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes necrotic or radiant damage, your choice, equal to that total. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage, and you round down. That's pretty neat. It's a twice a day thing, but a guaranteed hit of some kind if you use your channel divinity. You roll an additional d8 when you reach certain cleric levels: 7th level 2d8, 13th level 3d8, and 18th level 4d8. I like this as a feature, and I understand why it was included in the last playtest material, and indeed on this one too. Because channel divinity as a cleric, I mean, yes, you get to pick it on your domain, but let's just assume no domain at the minute. Turn Undead is not something that comes up all that often. Yes, there are a lot of undead creatures in the game, but there's a lot of situations where Turn Undead is going to be useless to you. But again, of course, you have your other domain ones. But I like the fact that there's a kind of a fairly neutral one that gets added with this new playtest material. So Turn Undead as a magic action. Again, this is like casting a spell, because that's what a magic action essentially is. As a magic action, you present your holy symbol and speak a prayer censuring undead creatures. Each undead within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails its saving throw, it has the frightened and incapacitated conditions for 1 minute. This effect ends early on the creature. If it takes any damage, you have the incapacitated condition, or you die. So let's compare Turn Undead to the 2014 Player's Handbook, shall we? As an action, you present your holy symbol and speak a prayer censuring the undead. Each undead that can see or hear you... now that's interesting. That's changed. They don't have to be able to see or hear you. They just have to be within 30 feet. Must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails the saving throw, it is turned for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. and then it explains a turned creature must spend its turns trying to move as far away from you as it can, and it can't willingly move to a space within 30 feet of you. It also can't take reactions. For its action, it can use only the dash action or try to escape from an effect that prevents it from moving. If there's nowhere to move, the creature can use the dodge action. Ooh, excuse me. So they've simplified it, and this is something that a theme that we're seeing across a lot of the playtest material is that they are simplifying some of these things that essentially, because essentially the turn undead thing is not too dissimilar to being frightened and incapacitated anyway. So what they've done is they've just simplified it and said, yeah, we'll just put those conditions on them. So then we don't have to explain what turning an undead means. It's not a specific, it's not a rules term anymore. Just look up the frightened and incapacitated conditions and let them do the heavy lifting, which is a nice, elegant game design, I think. It changes things slightly, I think, from having read the rules glossary, but the changes are going to be so subtle, if there are any, that it's probably not going to make a huge amount of difference. So now at 3rd level, you get to choose your Cleric subclass. Again, this is different from the 2014 Player's Handbook, because you start with choosing your Cleric subclass or your Divine Domain. They are, once again, we're seeing a lot where they're removing these specific types of names for choosing your subclass and just going, this is where you choose your subclass, and being really clear about it. So taking the Divine Domain title and just changing it to Cleric subclass, which, I don't know, I don't like lore being stripped out of my game, even if it is just the titles of class features. I don't want things... To get on a soapbox, it's one of the things I really despised about 4th edition, is it just took so much of the life out of the game, if you were to ask me. A lot of the life out of the game. So I would much prefer... if they kept things like Divine Domain in there, just because it kind of fuels the imagination just a little bit better. Anyway, so you gain a Cleric subclass of your choice. Life Domain, Light Domain, Trickery Domain, or War Domain, and the subclasses are detailed after this class's description, which is later, and we probably won't cover that today, and probably do that in the next episode. A subclass is a specialization that grants you special abilities at certain cleric levels for the rest of your career. You gain each of your subclasses features that are of your cleric level and lower. So you get to pick your subclass, and I presume each subclass at 3rd level, just having a quick look, yeah, that's going to give you some extra stuff straight at 3rd level. As part of Channel Divinity, etc., etc. But we'll cover them later. So, 4th level, you gain an ability score improvement feat or another feat of your choice. And again, this is something that I've noticed as well. They're backpedaling on this, because before it was just 4th level, you gain a feat, and one of those feats you could choose is the ability score improvement. They wanted the feat thing to be default, but they seem to have backpedaled on that now, and much more going to the, no, we'll go with the ability score improvement, and if you want to take the other feats, then that's an option instead of being the default position, which is fine, I suppose, but I quite liked the elegance of just take a feat rather than take the ability score improvement or a feat. It's one of the rare things I actually think that they've rather than streamlined things, just actually again backpedaled a little bit. Smite Undead. Now, is this different to Destroy Undead? Oh, they've changed it. Okay, they've changed the name of it. So, Smiting Undead, you can cause your Turn Undead feature to smite the Undying. Whenever you use Turn Undead, you can roll a number of d8s equal to your Wisdom modifier, a minimum of 1d8, and add the rolls together. Each undead that fails its saving throw against that use of Turn Undead takes radiant damage equal to the roll's total. This damage doesn't end the turn effect. Okay, so it's a way of damaging them as part of turning undead. Destroy Undead is a little bit different. When an undead fails its saving throw against a turn undead feature, the creature is instantly destroyed if its challenge rating is at or below a certain threshold, as shown in the Destroy Undead table. Okay. So, I actually think the Smite Undead works a bit better. Because if you are in a position where, I mean, Wisdom is your main ability score, right? So, likelihood is you're going to be starting the game on at least a +2. By the time you're 5th level, you're probably going to have pushed that up to +3. So at 5th level, you're going to be doing a 3d8, which is obviously going to give you a range of 3 to 24 on your damage, which you can then do the radiant damage. Now, things like zombies and things, they're probably going to get destroyed if you roll high on that anyway. So it's still going to have the effect of Destroy Undead. But again, it just simplifies things, so you don't have to look up a chart or anything. It just has, essentially a similar effect, but if you roll high. So I like it. I think it's elegant. At 6th level, you gain a subclass feature. And then, Blessed Strike. Yes, that was something that had changed. Blessed Strike. Divine Power infuses you in battle. You gain one of the following options of your choice. Divine Strike, once on each of your turns when you hit a creature with an attack with a weapon, you can cause the target to take an extra 1d8 necrotic or radiant damage, your choice. Or potent spellcasting, you add your wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any divine cantrip. If you get either option from another source, you use only the option you chose from this feature. Divine Strike. Oh, that is not something that is in the 2014 Player's Handbook, or even Blessed Strikes. No. So that was obviously something that was added in the last playtest material. So they've made some tweaks there. Again, I'm not going to compare it, but just in terms of what they're saying here, you in 2014, a subclass gave you one of those features. In this playtest, you now get a choice. Okay, so it's now part of the core class rather than certain subclasses from the looks of things. At 8th level, you get an ability score improvement, which you're probably going to choose Wisdom if you're a Cleric, unless, of course, you're going to pick a feat, in which case that Smite Undead is going to potentially go up to probably a 4 d8 at that point, which would be quite nice. 9th level, Commune. In the past, you have reached the divine source of your power through prayer. Now you can also have brief conversations. You always have the commune spell prepared. Now, I don't believe this was something that was in the core class, but I was recently running an Out of the Abyss game where we spent a fair amount of time, because I had 10 days of downtime or something ridiculous, communing with their deity, and I've really enjoyed it from a DM's perspective. The idea of just yes or no answers is a really interesting. If you've not played with the commune spell, it's really quite a lot of fun, particularly from a DM's perspective, because you get to really pick them up on the wording of the questions that they're answering. And if you're not familiar with the commune spell, basically they can ask their god any questions that any question within a minute, and the god has to answer yes, no, or maybe, or unclear, I think is the phrase that's used. That's a lot of fun from a roleplay perspective. So I like this, and I like that the commune spell is always prepared. I still don't like this kind of being vague about not being powered by the gods, and now it just being a vague thing. I understand it, but I just want to let me be a holy man that's talking to my god. So don't kind of make it out like I'm talking to like the spirits on a plane. Just let me talk to the gods. That's why you're a cleric, right? You don't play a cleric to like talk to the mists. No. You play a cleric because you want to talk to the gods. Anywho, 10th level, Divine Intervention. Now, this is something that was in the 2014 Player's Handbook, so we'll compare those in a moment. In fact, let's read how it is in the 2014 Player's Handbook to begin with. Beginning at 10th level, you can call on your deity to intervene on your behalf when your need is great. Imploring your deity's aid requires you to use your action. Describe the assistance you seek and roll percentile dice. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, your deity intervenes. So at this point, 10th level. So you got a 10% chance that they're going to get involved. The DM chooses the nature of the intervention. The effect of any cleric spell or cleric domain spell would be appropriate. If your deity intervenes, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. At 20th level, your call for intervention succeeds automatically. No rolls required. Okay, so this has apparently been updated. So, at 10th level now, Divine Intervention, you can call on your deity or pantheon to intervene on your behalf. As a magic action, choose any divine spell of 5th level or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast. As part of the same action, you cast that spell without expending a spell slot or needing material components. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. I get it. They're trying to make it more useful. But I just think my gut reaction, my hot take here, because this is the first time I'm reading it, is doesn't that just suck out half of the fun? Like, now the player is just basically the player gets a free 5th level spell slot. And then they get to do that again in a long rest. Like, that is ultimately what's happening here. They just get a free spell slot. So long as it's not a reaction casting. Whereas at least Divine Intervention, yes, okay, it might not succeed. But there's something exciting about it. And particularly because the result of the Divine Intervention is completely in the purview of the DM, but they advise using a divine or a cleric spell as appropriate, but ultimately it's up to the DM. With this, Divine Intervention is just picking a spell from my spell list and casting it. For free. To me, that's just really bland and boring by comparison. Yeah, I'm quite disappointed by that, actually, because I think Divine Intervention is really cool. I just would have... All they needed to do was just up the percentage. Like, just up the percentage. You know? Yeah. Not a fan of that, I must admit. 12th level, ability score improvement. You gain the ability score improvement, or a feat of your choice. Improved Blessed Strikes. Now, we looked at Blessed Strikes before. In fact, they are over here. Oops. Whilst we are looking over here, so we should be able to compare these quite nicely. The option you chose for Blessed Strike grows more powerful. Divine Strike. The extra damage of your Divine Strike increases to 2d8. Potent spellcasting. When you cast a Divine Cantrip and deal damage to a creature with it, you can give vitality to yourself or another creature within 60 feet of yourself, granting a number of temporary hit points equal to twice your wisdom modifier. So you get to heal when you cast a cantrip and deal damage. So it's kind of like a bit like leech lifing in a way. You're kind of doing damage to them, but also healing yourself as well. Okay. Cool. Nothing too exciting, but okay, nice. I mean, it allows the cleric to be both healer and combative with the potent spellcasting, and then of course Divine Strike, more damage, which is cool. It'll, do you want to be a more offensive cleric, or do you want to heal your friends? Again, nothing too exciting there, I don't think. Ability score improvement at 16th level. You gain the ability score improvement feat or another feat of your choice for which you qualify. Okay. At 17th level, you gain a subclass feature, and at 19th level, you gain another ability score improvement. And then at 20th level, you gain greater divine intervention. You're able to call on even more powerful divine intervention. When you use your divine intervention feature, you can choose wish when you select a spell. If you do so, you can't use divine intervention again until you finish 2d4 long rests. When you cast wish with this feature, you are immune to the stress caused by using wish to do something other than casting a spell. Okay. I mean, right. So, I get it. Okay, I'm going to get my soapbox here because about the whole class here, because that is the whole class. We will go through subclasses another time. But this is the whole class here now, and I'm going to get on my soapbox a touch. I don't like these changes to Divine Intervention. I don't like the changes to the Cleric in terms of a lore perspective. Some of the changes that they made with the Cleric before were nice. I like seeing the fact that these are included. The Divine Spark, yes, I like that. I liked it when they introduced it last time. The Commune feature, I like that that's included there. I again like that was included last time. I don't think that one got an update this time. Oh, it's a new 9th level feature. It was new for this playtest, forgive me. Well, yeah, I mean, I really like that. I love the Commune spell. I think it's really, really fun. So I like that that's been included here. But this Divine Intervention, man, it stinks. I've been fairly conservative with my reactions to some of these, but I really find this Divine Intervention subclass feature to be really bland and boring, and I feel as though the changes that they've made on the lore side of the Cleric is really bland and boring too. To me, it just feels like a fundamental misunderstanding of why somebody plays a Cleric. There will be some people that play Clerics because the party needs a healer, right? The party needs a healer, somebody needs to play the Cleric. Okay, I'll play the Cleric. But there are some genuinely, I have a debate with my eldest for a while. Clerics are freaking cool. Clerics are a cool class. In fact, my first character, I believe, was a Cleric. They are a cool class, and they're a cool class because there is so much lore that is so easily accessible to the player to utilize. You have your whole deity to call upon, your whole deity to lean into, and this idea of the holy man or the holy woman or everything in between, the holy person as a trope is really fun to play around with, and you can get a lot of flavor and put a lot of flavor into your character, even to a degree. Because I mean, in our actual play, Bardic Quest, our party cleric is a dwarf cleric who has grown up in a religious family who are all clerics, and he has, in many ways, has very little respect for the religion that he follows. In many ways, not because of necessarily the god, but just the religion. And that's all come from combining his backstory with that holy man trope. And there's just so much that you can play around with. And I think when you start removing the gods from the cleric, it just feels meh. Much in the way as with the druid, where they basically said, with the druid now, and I mean, look, opinions vary. I understand the game design on the druid where they were saying, we're just going to give you some 3 stat blocks, and then you can customize them as you level up. to me, that is fundamentally a misunderstanding of why somebody would play a druid. Somebody wants to play a druid because they want to be able to turn into various animals and have all of those options at their disposal to say, I need to be this right now because this animal's various abilities are going to really help me in this specific situation. That versatility, kind of in the same way that a wizard has versatility. That's why people play a druid, for that versatility. And with the cleric, people play the cleric because they want to be a holy warrior of some kind. Not quite a paladin, but a holy man or a holy person who very much works towards their god's goals. But now we're going, well, it's not necessarily the gods. It could be another being. At which point, where is the separation between a cleric and a warlock? At that point, it becomes the spell list. Like, okay. But from a flavor perspective, like, the warlock is the class for if you don't want to, be dependent or worshipping a god and you'd like to do that with another type of entity. That's what the warlock is for. I don't like this neutering of the lore surrounding the cleric. I think it's really bland. And then to neuter the divine intervention as well and make it just like, yeah, you get a free spell slot. Great. Love a free spell slot. But that's really going to replace me begging my god for help and having a 10% chance, by the way, which is more likely than rolling a natural 20, and you can keep doing it again and again and again. If your deity intervenes, you can't use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. Just, if you want to make it more useful, change it so that you can use it again after a short rest, so long as they didn't intervene. Like, then they get to use it multiple times a day, because the god hasn't intervened. I mean, this is a 10th level feature, so just make it more frequent. Changing it to just a spell slot, because that's essentially what they've done. Changing it to a free spell slot is so boring and unimaginative. Whereas at least the Divine Intervention class feature is really imaginative as it's presented. It's like, yeah, you can ask your god for anything. They might not listen to you, but you can ask them for anything, and then the DM gets to decide how that plays out. That's interesting, because you don't know as a player necessarily what help you're going to get, and it puts the DM into a degree of control because it allows them to make that decision based upon the world that they're building and the story that they are telling. And the DM... Look, I'm not a big believer in the DM railroading things and having decided where the story's going. My DM style is very much kind of like, let the dice decide, let the players decide. I have some ideas, but if they don't meet that, double-crossing traitor because they're not interested in it, then that never happens. That's fine. I can put that to one side and use it in another game or use it later on. Like, the dice will decide. But I do also understand that the DM understands a lot of things that the players don't, because they are the all-knowing, all-seeing kind of equivalent, really. So by putting it into the control of the DM with Divine Intervention, what you're saying is, yeah, okay, the DM, it makes sense for the Divine Intervention to come in this form for reasons that I won't share with you yet, but might become really useful and interesting later on. But when you're just changing it to, yeah, just pick a spell, player, and just cast that spell, like, really? That's your 10th level feature, an extra spell slot. I know that's really, really ranty of me, but I just think that's so dull. And then at 20th level, you get to cast Wish when you choose your spell. I'm pretty sure at 20th level, as a cleric, you probably got access to Wish anyway. So it's a free casting of Wish, and you're not going to be... Let me see now. I'm going to double check that. the wish thing. But I'm pretty sure as a cleric you're going to have access to wish by 20th level. So it's like, okay, you get a free casting of wish without any of the downsides. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't do anything for me. Oh, okay, maybe clerics don't have wish by then. Who does have wish then if it's not a cleric? Huh. I'm trying to multitask here and it's not very entertaining for you guys. But yeah, for me, the divine intervention thing is a real, failure. For me, it's aside from the druid wild shaping, it is the change that I am most upset about. And I don't play clerics, really. I'm not a player. I'm a DM. But I'm putting myself in the player's shoes. I just think it's really, well, not even in the player's shoes, but just in a general feel for the game. It just doesn't. It feels really. It feels like with the wild shaping of the druid, it feels like a step too far in the name of simplicity. It's a wonderfully simple bit of game design, but is it fun? Is it fun to just get an extra spell slot? No, that's not fun. That's not exciting. That's not interesting. Now, the 9th level commune, the free casting of commune, that's a little bit more interesting. Because, again, there's some DM interaction. It's getting secrets from the DM. Sure, you could probably do things like that with divine intervention. Sure, gain some knowledge. But, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too mad about this. But I think divine intervention could be much more interesting. It is much more interesting in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Just make it more usable more often, or make it more likely to succeed. That's all you've got to do to make it more interesting. It doesn't need to be this oversimplified free spell slot. It just seems a bit bland and pointless. Anyway, I've been going on far too long about my opinions on the divine intervention. My feelings on this class generally... okay, some nice things in here. I liked some of the additions, but the divine intervention needs to be turned back and just tweaked slightly. And all of the other additions I actually really do like. But give us the lore around the gods. Give us a divine intervention being actually cool rather than just a free spell slot, and everything else otherwise can stay. I actually really like the class otherwise. But those two things just really make the cleric seem much more bland in comparison. So yeah, this is a no from me. This current iteration of the cleric, it's a no from me. But we'll see. We'll see what the survey results say when they finally release those in a while. So, I just wanted to quickly say, if you have been watching for this long, and thank you. Apologies if I have rambled a little bit. I'm quite headachy today and a little under the weather. But I wanted to get this in before, because I'm going away at the end of the week. So there won't be a live stream next Monday. I'm hoping to get one scheduled in for later in the week. But as of now, there is no live stream planned for next Monday, so we'll see how things go in terms of fitting one in later in the week. So I thought it was really important, even though I'm feeling under the weather, to get this live stream in today. But I wanted to just give you a heads up as well, if you have been watching this long, about our Adventurers Guild. So if you don't have a D&D game and you'd like one, you've got an itch that you need to scratch, and you'd like a weekly game, but you can't get one together, you might live out in the middle of nowhere, you might have no friends that are interested in D&D, no access to a game store, or maybe, you have responsibilities, which means it's difficult for you to leave the house and go and get a game. I do offer my DMing services to members of the public. These are the adventures we're currently running: Lost Mine of Phandelver, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, and Tyranny of Dragons. Dragons of Stormwreck Isle is going to be starting up on Foundry. We're moving a game over to Foundry for the first time, so if you're Foundry curious as well, then you can find our game on Start Playing Games, which is what powers all of these games. But bardicquest.com/play will take you to the games that we are currently running, and you can see all of those there. So that's bardicquest.com/play if you fancy playing with me as your dungeon master. So that's going to be it from me today. So thanks very much for tuning in and listening to me rambling on about the divine intervention. But yeah, well, I won't go into it. But yes, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will not catch you next Monday. As I say, there'll be no live stream next Monday, but hopefully there will be another one next week. So stay tuned for that and any details on our YouTube channel. So, of course, by the way, if you do want notifications as to when the next live stream will be, do make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon as well to get notified of any live stream changes and updates that are coming, and of course, so you can catch our actual play show that takes place on Thursdays. 4 p.m. is the episode premiere, but then obviously it's available on demand to you there. So once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.